Hi, this is Sean Cahill, and you're listening to that UFO podcast.
Steve, there's a lot I still want to get to, including Awakening, we're going to speak about in just a moment, but a lot of things I wanted to follow up on with you there. I've made a few notes, and I think that's one for down the line, if you would do me the pleasure of coming back on to speak about a variety of different things.
Yeah, sure.
I want to ask, just before we get to Awakening, recent hearings in the US a couple of weeks ago on UFOs or UAPs happened in the Congress. How did those meet your expectations of what was going to happen?
Yeah, okay. Well, I watched them. And to be honest, I thought they were useless. To be honest with you, same old thing going round and round and round. Yeah, we had debates on objects in the sky with aircraft back in the 1940s, 44, 45, 46. You know, with the Foo Fighters and that type of stuff. It's just a regurgitation. It's not we're back in. It's just a replay of historical events going over and over. It might be under a new name of UAP, but we're still back in the same situation. Ignore the last 70 years and reboot it in a sense of speaking. But they showed two or three pieces of video footage. All were absolutely useless. All were lousy. You know, to the point where, well, why show one where you can identify what it is? If it's infrared and it's causing a triangular shape through its lens, then why even show it? I've got better stuff. I've got better stuff here. They could have shown at that hearing. And asking questions about, the ICBMs being affected by UFOs. It was like, what? Oh, you don't know about that. We haven't got paperwork on that. Hello, where have you been for the last 70 years? This is why it's so darn important that we hang on to that. We don't lose it. That 70 years or whatever of information is so important because we can go back and say, well, hang on a second. I'll tell you what you do. I'll give you the Freedom of Information Act files. Don't even have to go and look for them. I'll give them you, pal. Here they are. Yeah. There's 40 pages documented. There's generals, there's captains, there's lieutenants, you name them, right? There's a big long list of all these people that are involved. It's trackable data. You can go back and look at it. You can see the investigation. You can see the conclusions. You can see the results, and they're signed off, and they're official documents. If I can find them through FOIA, these guys, they should be able to have them on a penny. No problem. And that's the problem of ignoring the last 70 years. Yeah, we need data. We need to find out new information. And no, you don't. It's all there. Yeah, you can call it a different name, but still the same phenomena. And the problem for me is that, the guys that there doesn't seem to be anybody who's really pushing to say, okay, what is it? And where do we go from now? Everyone's talking about a threat. Well, we've always had the threat. When was the last time a UFO took down an aircraft? I don't really know, really. And what is that threat? Well, the problem for me is that when you generate enough threat, it creates money because a defensive program has to take place. And a defensive program, when it's a threat, costs trillions. And that trillions could be very usefully plowed into the warring of space, weaponizing space. Though that they keep applying every single year for it, and they get knocked back through Congress because it has to break the 1976 US Treaty Act, Space Treaty Act, which was put in that purposely to stop anybody from manipulating and monopolizing space. They're already doing it. That's why Space Force came forward, not because they're going to do it, that's because they're already doing it, and we can't keep a lid on it anymore. There's so many defense contractors that know about it. Eventually it's going to spill. Let's make it official. And then they'll bring it out. So Space Force is official now because the first satellite I know was weaponized place it was in 1965. And that was linked in Project Moondust, Blue Fly, and Gemini. And that was all linked into Wright-Patterson Air Force Base study of the phenomena. So it's not something new, but defense money, you've got to play a story to get it, to be honest with you. And there's no better story than the threat at the moment. Everyone keeps saying threat. And my question is, well, even during the Second World War, when we encountered this phenomenon, what threat was there? That was at a high demand of threat at that time. Well, are they talking about ICBMs? And well, it's a demonstration of power, or what's going on? Because is that a threat?
Playing devil's advocate, Steve, you may have heard this. Lou Elizondo in the past has talked about the muddy boot prints. That if you wake up in the morning and there are muddy boot prints all through your house, which was totally locked up, totally secure, you've got the best CCTV, and you've got the wife and kids, in their bed, and the next morning nothing's moved, no one was harmed, but those muddy boot prints are there. you're going to feel threatened because you don't know what it was, you don't know who it was, you don't know why they were there, but you know something managed to penetrate your kind of secure living area. And if you just blow that up to a government, a powerful government or any government, and you have a military which gets billions and trillions spent on it, and you have
Yeah.
all this fantastic technology you talk about that we do have, and any government and country has, especially the US, the Chinese, the Russians, um, would you not understand? Again, I'll play devil's advocate, that you would perceive that as a threat, that there seems to be something else, something better, regardless of the actual intent being known. It is a threat.
Um, I think anybody would perceive it to be a threat. Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, internally, though, there was that exactly the same thing was happening 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years ago. Exactly the same thing. The government, US government, we were very well versed in regarding what is really a threat or not, because it's the same threat they had on the table 70 years ago, and they're still back in the same place. So what's new? Why all of a sudden is such an effort in regarding, oh, well, there's a threat? I mean, there was 70 years ago with aircraft and flying around, commercial aircraft and military aircraft, misidentifying them as they flew across Europe, which was under the SHAPE program, which was being monitored. But it's exactly the same. If it is a threat, I mean, how long's a threat become a threat when nothing happens for the last 70 years and it's still a threat? I mean, the thing is that once we venture into the sky and we experience this phenomena, it hasn't changed its routine. It's always maintained what it wants to maintain. We're not seeing something new, a new deliverable threat. What we're seeing is it is the same old threat. That something is in our skies, and it could cause this, and it could cause that. Well, yeah, I mean, and that's always been the same. For me, at the hierarchy, I would say, in that if I was in the government, I'd be looking at that and saying, well, it might be deliverable to the general public as a threat, but really on record, it's the same old, same old, same old, same old, which has been going on for the last 70 years, if not longer. And nothing happened throughout those generations. So why all of a sudden now is it the determination for the threat? It could be that that it's just a matter of you want to get any money into a research program, you've got to show something or make it worthy to do so. And it might be because there is lots of money. It could be ploughed into some form of research here or into the defence program. I mean, what's that mean? Does that mean that they want to build weaponized objects in space so that they can fire down on these objects? Because they're moving so fast, they have to use Mesa weaponry. They're never going to reach them by missile. And we saw probably elements of that back in the STS footage from the 1990s. Probably firing Mesa weapons at some of these objects, and he can still outmaneuver them.
And what
So
about the reports of the obviously nuclear weapons being turned on and off again as our technology's improved? And like you say, they've not actively, as far as we know, we should clarify that, done anything directly threatening. But again, speaking with my general's hat on here, who's in charge of a nuclear
exactly
arsenal,
the same thing, yeah.
yeah, I'm looking going, but these can turn off our best and most advanced weaponry.
Yeah,
Again, that's, to me, I would perceive that as a threat, being in the military,
yeah,
being in the government. So I appreciate that point of view. And 70, 75 years, potentially longer, if you go back to Egyptian times, biblical times, and even before that, have these cave paintings, for God's sake. Is that a long time for them? Maybe they are just observing. Maybe it's not. And for
yeah.
us, look at the advancements in that 70 years we have made technologically. It just maybe comes to a point that
It's interesting. I mean, what's interesting is that when they analysed those nuclear warheads, what they found was, I mean, they were completely intact, the nuclear warheads. I mean, you take some getting into, but they were completely intact. It's only when they actually took them apart, looked inside, that wires and things had been physically moved. How does things physically move inside? It's like it's a paranormal action taking place inside the warhead, deliverable by some beams of light were coming from an object. Again, it's just so profound. But is it a demonstration of force? I don't know. I don't know what the intent is behind it. It's problematic, but I mean, they've been offline and then suddenly just come back on right at the last seconds. Maybe it's not a demonstration of force. It's certainly a demonstration of technology that they have. Maybe it's a message. Maybe it's to say, look, we have the capabilities of doing this. Because I think certainly nuclear stuff certainly grabs their attention. Absolutely. Not because I don't think that, not because I think they care for humanity. I don't think that is the case. I think they don't care for planet Earth. Probably least care about us, because they don't seem to get involved in our wars and stuff very often. So, but certainly attracted to them and monitoring them. So
it reminds me of those old cartoons where you've got a bully with a weapon, and the bigger, stronger brother comes along and takes the weapon and just bends it and gives it back as if to say stop. And they're not threatening, but they're just making a point.
I find it amusing that they do that, and it's not just the Americans they've done it to. They've done it. They made an effort to demonstrate something on a global basis. Because at the end of the day, are we taking in consideration the planet? We don't think about that when we go to war, do we? We just think about people and politics. We don't think about the planet, and I think they might have a better understanding that. Well, you know what, we don't really care what you're doing, but if it starts interfering with fundamentally the planet, then we might have something to say about that. Who knows? But never one of them actually intervened to try and assist us in regarding bettering the ecological system of planet Earth. It's always a one-line deliverable message, which is pointless being given because they usually give it to school kids.
I was literally going to say about the aerial phenomenon documentary that's just been out, and that was one.
Have you seen it?
Yes, yeah, I have. Yeah, it was
Well,
really
I'll
good.
tell you what it did it for me was, and I keep saying about how this phenomena is so deceptive and manipulative, is that most of the children ran away from the craft when it came down on the ground, but only a handful, a few of them, approached the craft, which were girls, funny enough. They saw a particular entity on the craft, which was first described as one entity on the craft, which looked like a grey, typical grey alien in a black boiler suit. And they're watching this thing and moving closer to it. They were getting quite close. And all of a sudden, another one appears at a flash, but this one's got long, dark hair. Because the young girls had long, darkish hair, I think it was kind of a little bit of, I'm a little bit like you. And this figure, they said, they were absolutely transfixed on this figure. And not the one, there's like the one on the craft didn't exist anymore. They're looking at this thing, and it's running from running from where it was manifest, just appeared and runs left. But as it ran, it was running really slowly, like an astronaut on the moon. It was like in slow motion, and it'd get to the end and disappear, like a light bulb go off and reappear, and it happened again,
like a loop.
And it was a loop. It was like a. I don't think that was real. I think that was here.
Mm-hmm.
I think that other entity did this, and it was clouding the mind. It was causing confusion. It's a bit like the glamoring effect, like I mentioned earlier. I mean, and maybe that any real entity, is put on this lovely magician's hand display over here. Is doing what it wants to do, and they put poor kids, those three kids, didn't have a clue what was happening. And only afterwards they were, maybe got interrupted, but only afterwards it was, when you talked to them, they were saying, well, I got this kind of message that he wanted us to go with him, sort of thing. And I thought, well, just to manifest that, and one with long dark hair, and it's a bit sinister. It's a bit creepy. It's a bit sinister. And I think to myself, that's that deception there, Oh, look at this. Don't look at me. I'm not important. You look at this. I'm generating in your mind, And that's what I found really interesting about that, because I didn't know that there were deceptive, probably parts of that experience until I found out the inner details of some of those kids. So,
Steve,
but again, it's the same old story. Why deliver that? Why deliver these messages to kids?
Yeah.
If you want to make a difference, you can. It's like a one-liner. They all tell you, it's like, oh, if you meet these humans and they ask you, oh, this is the one-liner to feed them, because they all say the same thing, pretty much.
What I've said, though, if you think of it this way, those kids were given a message 25 years ago, and at the time, it's that one-liner. It's a small group of children in rural Zimbabwe, of all places. However, 25 years later, a very powerful documentary's been made, which has had an impact, had a release, which is
Yep.
now being seen by people all around the world. If that message at the time, which it was reported on, didn't really travel, we didn't have the same type of broadcast media, social media. And it seems that that message getting out now is the best time to do it because we have social media. So maybe the message was delivered then to get out now and spread
Well,
that
yeah, I
way.
mean, it's not the first time. I mean, those messages have been delivered since the 1950s. 1951 was the first message about ecology. And it still didn't make any difference. The great against the great engine of the ecological system and the companies that are associated with what they want to do. I can't see any. A documentary is not going to be impacting. I mean, it's just not going to reach where they want to reach. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I think they have on occasion. They have the capabilities of knowing what's going to be taking place in future events. They know when certain things are going to happen. They know where to be under certain conditions. And it's exactly the same with the phenomenon of the paranormal. I mean, we're given information pertaining to 18 months into the future, and you get correct. It leaves. I don't know how much the phenomenon knows into the future, but it certainly has some information that it can give to you, which is, yeah, it makes you think that your life's already set out, which is a bit annoying, to be honest with you, because that means that are we really in charge of our own decisions, you know? But we have accounts like that many times in parapsychological research where we get fed information pertaining to future events, and yes, it happens. So, and we get a lot of stuff in the UFO phenomena where they seem to appear, or these incidents happening just prior to events taking place in them locations, which is, you look over them all, and statistically you'd say, well, they must have had some idea something was going to be taking place. So it just makes it also more profound. There's a lot more profoundness to the subject than just ETs traveling the vast distances of planets to get here and examine us. There's definitely an interaction taking place that's been going on for a very, very long time. In regarding the technological argument, it's a problem. It really is. Because, for the average ufologist now, I mean, how are we supposed to ascertain what people are really seeing or not is a real tricky one, because, like I say, a photo and a video just won't do it now. It won't cut it. It's just anything can be. We can see them in movies. Anything can be manufactured now, and that's a real problem for us. I think credible, multiple, independent witnesses is probably up at the top of the
Like
list.
another Phoenix Lights to happen now, where people have got
Another Phoenix Lights,
yeah.
absolutely, yeah. When we got radar data and so many witnesses and da 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 da, in fact, fantastic, But a video and photos not going to. It's a shame because people are witnessing these things, and occasionally the phenomenon will allow itself to be photographed or documented. But it's frustrating to them because they think, wow, look, there's my evidence. Well, I know, but unfortunately, it's going to land upon a pile of evidence from everybody else around the world. We're just still asking the same old question. I'm still trying to push forward. The whole point of Project Doorway was to manufacture a study program that brings and is deliverable of new areas of research using specialized pieces of equipment. And it also ties in with some of the leading research programs which are currently underway by defence contractors regarding wormhole technology and that sort of thing. It's basically we wrote it into, actually what we did is we provided it into a course format, a UFO investigation course, a new one for the 21st century ufologist, allowing to bring in those other areas of other subjects pertaining to similarities between them, and so that there are identifiers. And we at first, when we first released it, we had some MUFON investigators were doing it. Because it just was a big step away from the old nuts and bolts phenomena traveling the vast distances of planet Earth and da 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 da. Because we now know that we are on the verge of change and having to reinvestigate and do things in a little bit of a different way to get some answers. Because we now know that phenomena can be conjured through the process of belief. It's done in the CE5 protocols. It's like the same thing as around the seance table with 5 mediums or 5 meditators on a beach. No difference. We know that it's and that phenomenon manifests as conjured is the real phenomenon as well. It's not a parlor trick. It actually is the phenomenon it manifests. So it's interactive. It's obviously consciously interactive. So we know that, and he's right, Greer, when he says, you know what, the government can't control that. The government, you want contact, then you can have contact. You don't need a government for that. The downside is that you need to prepare yourself and be aware of what you're going to be experiencing. And I would say, as my colleague said the same thing, it's knowing, it's relying on that fight or flight response, your capabilities of understanding if you're in an environment of danger. And the biggest problem now is that many people just go out on sky watches and investigations. They take the Coca-Cola and they've got the Mars bars and the candy bars, and the amount of refined sugar they're eating has just reduced their adrenal weakness so much that the fight or flight might be screaming at them to say, get the hell out of there, and you can't hear it. They're just taking steps towards the phenomenon. That's the problem. I always say starve yourself of refined sugar for 72 hours. Try and clear it at least as much as you can from the body prior to a good investigation. You'd be surprised how incredible the body can be regarding informing you. The biggest organ across your body is your skin. It'll inform you when you get those goosebumps and whatnot. The hair goes up. That's what it's for. It's a survival sense. To rely on that. And if you feel that you're in a dangered area, just because you can't see it, just because you can't hear it, don't mean it's not there. Then back away. Don't be ashamed to back away. We've backed away many times. Sounds ridiculous, but we have done, because sometimes we're unaware of what's going on. Bit of a magician's hand goes on sometimes.
Well, you mentioned the deceptive nature of the phenomena and deceptive entities, and another set of deceptive entities would be UK politicians. And I just want to ask, ask you, the UK's place in this official conversation. We seem to be sadly lacking, well behind when it comes to UFOs. Baroness Goldie, a few months ago, or even last summer, I think it was, in Parliament, was asked about the UFOs and what was happening in the US and incursions into UK airspace, and it was chortled and laughed at and very much brushed aside. Do you see that changing in the near future here in the UK?
Yeah, I think at some point we're going to be able to end up to the same point like the US. We will enter into the process of doing some hearings by public demand. I think they're going to sit back and see how it all unfolds in the US first. The problem is that that they claim they want to be forward and transparent and release documentation. I'm still waiting for them to release my documents. They're not even released my files that I submitted to them. Which involved investigation of 3 police officers, two triangular objects. And there's a number. I've got about 3 investigations. They've not released that information. It wasn't out, so that's still under the carpet somewhere. So really, it's not about being transparent. It's pretentious. It's to makes you think that they want to be transparent when they're putting out things which are just pretty much useless to us, just information. But the real core, real good stuff is being kept back purposely. So there's no transparency there. It's a trick, it's a parlor trick to make you think that. And it's been done time and time before. How many times has they said, "Oh, we released it all now," and then, "Oh, well, by the way, we've just found a new lot." They keep doing this, and I'm sure they've still sat on a lot. Like I say, I'm waiting on my 3 files to appear, and mine haven't. So. But I think that at some point there will be enough public demand to say we have to have inquiry. I don't want hearings. I want a proper scientific inquiry done with the knowledge that we've gleaned for the last 70 years. Don't want no new hearing. Why do we have to bring in new faces to cover old stuff? We don't need to. We've learned so much more now. And we can pick up from there. But unfortunately, it's kind of gone right back to the beginning and been dragged right through again. And God knows, if they've even got enough information and energy to actually carry them on, to be honest with you, because this could go on for a very, very long time. I'm hoping there's going to be new hearings and we're going to force new issues being looked at, but the way it's done in America and the order of it, it's a bit long-winded, it's hard, but I'm hoping so. I think the UK will get at that point at some point. There'll be enough public demand to say we need some form of hearing, but then the UK are then responsible to turn around and say, "Oh, by the way, we're also going to reboot it and call it the UAP phenomenon and fall in line with the US." And that's again is a problem for us.
Speaking of public demand, we'll talk about the sold out Awakening Expo, which happens in Blackpool in England between the 24th and 26th of June. For listeners who may not have heard of Awakening, when did it start, Steve, and how has it changed over the years to the scale it is now?
Awakening, maybe about 6 or 7 years, probably a little bit longer, maybe. Um, we mostly hold our events in Manchester at Bowler's Exhibition Centre, and we quickly became the largest event of its type in Europe, with about 2,500 people, sometimes just over. This year we're doing a slightly smaller event, but it's a very specialised event regarding ancient mysteries. Though we do cover some aspects of UFO stuff in Blackpool on June the 24th, 25th, and 26th. We've got some of the main guys, specialists in the field of study of ancient aliens or ancient astronaut theory, attending. Giorgio Tsoukalis from the Ancient Aliens TV show. Eric von Daniken will be there, and numerous other researchers on ancient mysteries and strange things like that from around the world. But we do, as I say, we are covering some aspects of UFO stuff as well. We got Richard Doty coming over, the disinformation guy, so that'll be interesting.
I got some questions for you from listeners about Richard Doty's attendance and controversial appearance about that. Like,
oh yeah, I'm sure there will be.
I mean, let me paraphrase because there was several of them, and I'll put it politely. You know, given his past, you mentioned disinformation agent. That's what people know him as. There's allegations of what he was involved in. He has talked about how he professionally lied, and that did ruin people's careers and lives to various extents.
Yep.
What is the thinking in getting someone like that involved in this when there is a train of thought with some that would say he shouldn't be involved?
Because we know. Anybody will realise when they've been involved in this subject enough is that you never get full disinformation. There's always partial information. That's how they're trained, and that's how it always works. And even if he's deliverable on the day, and after his lecture, we can take 75% of that away and leave us 25% of real truth, then that's intriguing because there's 25% of information that is truth. We are going to be monitoring exactly what he's saying, and we have to take that line of stance that he's still beyond the bandwagon. As could be, and still disinforming. But all disinformation officers are always told to blend the truth with the. And what we're going to do is we've come a lot further now. We do know that there's a lot of elements of truth we can identify now. It's not like the old days. So we're hoping that some of that information will be really interesting. There might be some elements of it which is completely not true. It's hard to know forever, be sure. I mean, he's retired now, and he says he's quite happy to come and talk about his involvement with this subject. And I think it's just a matter of people being intrigued. I mean, people have said, why would you have someone, want to come and talk? Well, yeah, because it is intriguing. Because did he have access? The big question is, did he have access to that information? Because when he's talking about this stuff, where's that coming from? Where's the documentation? Where's the information coming from? Because it's not just circulating around on the internet. It's new material that's come forward and talked about, and it's not on the internet. So where's that information being delivered from? So it's intriguing. I think there is dislike and his like, but at the end of the day, we sum it up whatever people are going to say. I mean, I try and keep as much evidence as I possibly can when it comes to moving forward in the subject. I've never had Richard Doty ever talk, though that I'm very, very well aware of his background and the things he's been involved in. But also I know that 25% of what he's going to be telling me is true, because that's how they're trained. That's what got me intrigued.
More and more of these conferences and expos around the world are springing up and happening with more regularity, especially in the US. It's much harder in the UK to get, especially on the scale that you're putting on with Awakening and you'd put on with Awakening. We mentioned before in your 40 plus years in this subject and going back 70 years, there's been there was a stagnation at one point in the UFO subject. And then I feel in 2017, I mentioned that changed, and a whole host of new names and new faces came on board, including people interested in the subject, but new witnesses came forward, scientists got more involved, people like Avi Loeb and many, many others now on the bandwagon, so to speak. How do you see Awakening adapting as an entity to accommodate the different areas of interest that people have?
Well, I think so much more next year because the 2023 Awakenings, which is back in Manchester, and it's going to be the full blown, the full main event, but the large one. We have, I mean, the whole topic is about ufology evolved. I think that's actually the header name, ufology evolved, because it has evolved. It has evolved, like you just said, with new research, new people, and I mean, I'm involved with the SCU, which is Scientific Coalition of European Studies, which is a think tank in the US, and we're associated with the work that Avi Loeb is doing, and on the pulse of Eric Davis. I mean, we shared at the same conference a few days ago, and Hal Puthoff, and all these people are involved in certain projects with information, which is intriguing, and we're pushing forward. And the whole point of this awakening for next year is about that side, is about pushing forward. It's where do we go now? Okay, we know what we know from all these years ago, but what now? Where do we go from now? Um, is it going to be such a big impact in regarding the information that that Louis is going to be coming out with? Because he's with us next year. He'll have his new book out, hopefully, and we're sharing some things that have never been talked about before. And it's about moving forward. Where do we go from here? And what parties are involved? Avi Loeb and many others, there's other researchers out there, are providing their piece to the puzzle, their specialist work. And what's happening, I'm seeing a little bit more of an academic, and I'm glad of that, don't get me wrong, more of the academic, less of the circus, please, but more of the academic stuff coming forward. Because though that we can all have a good laugh at this phenomena, because it is quirky and unusual, there is a seriousness to it, real complications to this phenomena, and how it interacts with people. And like you mentioned before, do we need to be defended against this phenomena? It's the old thing is, what do we do should the dog turn on you? It's that scenario, and we've all been there. We think about this all the time. I don't know if it's ever reachable. I don't know. It's hard to know, but it's about delivering answers. So I think next year it's a bit more the science side about how we're moving forward with some new information.
Yeah, I think there's always a room for, and I use the word, and people have mentioned this in the past, some find it offensive to say the woo, but that's just the way to accommodate the spiritual. Yeah, that's it. And then we've got the nuts and bolts scientific side of things. And for me, for too long, there's been a lot of conferences worldwide where you look at the list of names and it's sort of woo after woo after woo. And what we have now is a chance. And I would love to see, me personally, as a fan and someone who actually was meant to attend my first Awakening conference in 2020. I had tickets. It got cancelled, so I started a podcast. And here we are talking. And I'm going to be attending Awakening with a stand this year, which is really cool. But I want to see names on there, not necessarily the same old names from that. You mentioned circus and that old school ufology of.
You are right, absolutely. I mean,
but like I mentioned Avi Loeb, but also you've got the debrief with journalists like Tim McMillan, who'd be fascinating to listen to. I'd love to hear from if you could get pilots like Fravor, Dietrich, Graves, any of. Again, there's a fee involved for you, and if these people want to come, and the logistics of it, and younger speakers as well, because so many more people. I don't class myself as young at 36, but I don't doubt when I turn up to Awakening in Blackpool, I'm probably going to be on the very, very younger end of the demographic attending, let alone anyone speaking at the event. And I really think there's a massive gap in any of these conferences.
Always trying. Yeah, I mean, as well as I do when it comes to Awakenings. I mean, I try. I mean, we've had a lot of props and things, and made it a little bit like a Comic-Con in the past, just so we can introduce a younger audience into the subject because we got to consider where we're going to be in 30 years' time. Who's going to be doing the research? Who's going to be the person to deliver this information, pick up and carry on? Because it seems to be the same in crowd or a lot of the time in different places. And it's the same thing that's going around, the same information. I mean, surely from year to year, they wouldn't have the time to conduct all the research on investigations just to deliver new lectures every single year.
Yeah.
It's too much hard work. But they've got their ear to the ground. But at the same time, there's a lot of things that's getting missed, lots of things. So hopefully, next year it will help us go in a little bit more of a more of a bit of an academic path, because I think for the very first time, we can start introducing them, because these have been come into the subject interested because of what's happened with the Pentagon and information coming out. It's caught their eye without too much woo-woo, should we say, because we don't want to scare them off. But at the end of the day, though, some of this phenomenon is woo-woo.
Yeah.
Like I said, and I had this discussion with the guys at SCU, and I said, look, I work, my specific job title working is paranormal mechanics and fringe topics within the realms of UAP and parapsychological work. That's my given specific area, and it's there. It's deliverable. The conclusive evidence is there. And they said, "Oh yeah, we know." I said, "You know?" And he said, "Oh yeah, we know." I said, "But," he said, we need to accumulate and keep it, but we've got to drip feed it to the science guys, because if we just go, whoa, there it is, they're going to go, oh my God, I don't want to be involved in this, and nobody wants that, because this is for the first time we really are getting some, we're breaking some ground with new academics coming, academic research coming forward and offering their services and new information coming from outside those circles, and that's brilliant. That's a big achievement. So I'm hoping that we can carry on doing that, and next year is no option, no different at all.
Well, this year, 2022, I'll be there with my colleagues from UAP Media UK, Dan, who
Oh,
co-hosts
wow.
with me, Graham Rendell, who is an expert. You mentioned the Foo Fighters, has released his second book, and he's got his third on the way soon on the Foo Fighters of
Brilliant.
World War II. Fascinating. If you were looking for a name for 2023, Graham's presentations are incredible. If you were looking for someone, Dave Partridge will be there with us, and Vinnie Adams, and I think you've been on Vinnie's podcast recently as well. So we'll be there to meet people and speak to listeners. I know a lot of listeners have bought tickets for it too. 2022 is sold out, but 2023, when will that go on sale?
Well, we've still got a few tickets left. I mean, ticket quarter we were advertising with have to stop usually a week or two before. But you still have a few tickets available for purchase on the door on the day. Brilliant. Which is fine. We just can't go through the process like Ticket Quarter does at the moment, taking electronic payments. But you can purchase tickets on the door on the day. And tickets for 2023, the pre-public tickets will first go out to those that are attending in Blackpool first for next year. Allows them to get their ticket early, because we have a vision that that's going to end up being sold out quite quickly, because we have plans on, well, and I can't tell you now, but we got some plans for some big names coming alongside who we have, like Daryl Sims, and he's going to be providing some of the new latest data in regarding some of his work and analysis. So that's going to be interesting. And of course some of the other stuff. I mean, not only have we got, we're going down that side with Louis. We're hoping to get into the whole. I can't mention names at the moment, but once we've got them confirmed, we're in negotiations at this moment. So once we've got them confirmed, then they should be very, very interesting.
Well, I certainly look forward to being there finally 2 years after I was meant to attend as just a normal fan. I'm going to be there in a professional capacity, but looking to meet people and enjoy it as well. To finish up, I just want to ask you a couple of listener questions, Steve, if you don't mind. You've been
sure, yeah.
And just to confirm, the winner of the pair of gold tickets for the weekend for the competition I ran on the podcast that were generously donated by Awakening, it was Davy Johnson. Davy's been contacted to confirm his attendance. He's going to enjoy the weekend, take along his +1. So enjoy that, Davy, and thank you everyone who got involved as well. Please do come and say hello to the UAP Media stand. I'll be there, definitely on the Saturday. I won't be there on the Sunday because I'm attending Liam Gallagher at Hampden in Glasgow. So, but I'm there on the Saturday with my colleagues and look forward to speaking to people. But let's fire through some questions. I've got Dave Smethurst, who I know is going to be at Awakening, so look forward to meeting Dave again. He asks, what do you make of the reported beliefs of the Collins elite about the phenomenon really being of demonic origins and tricking us all? Do you think those in the US military and intelligence community still buy into this?
I believe some of them still do buy into it. I know there's been many incidents where, should we say, certain study programs have come to a grinding halt because the phenomena demonstrates something that is non-desirable for researchers or even in the authoritative way want to get involved with. They do. It does. The problem is that the phenomena does show aspects of that. It really does. This is why it has a close connection with the supernatural and the occult. This is why the Germans are involved very heavily into it. There is a lot of evidence to support that there's these aspects which do fall that way. It's problematic. Yeah, I mean, like I say, even if you want to start getting into, because we obviously we're already taking the mindset that we're working on a base plate of information, but even the original information about the devil and demons and Satan and all those sort of things is again not correct. It's if you actually check into those sort of things and the references and the information, it's not all factual. Things have been added and changed, and that's a problem for us. If it does, I mean, how does one recognise a phenomena? I mean, and the name is just a name at the end of the day. The devil, the demon, or whatever, it's just a name. It's the same thing that we investigate in the paranormal field. So many people say, "Oh, demonic entity," and da 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 da. It is all one and the same thing. You're just categorizing something by its actions. And if anybody can have a really bad day, so it's problematic. But to the answer to that question is yes, I do believe there are aspects of this phenomena which is non-desirable for obvious reasons, and I'm not the only one that's actually referenced that. I believe a US senator came out and mentioned about that some of these projects they wouldn't work on because the people working on these specialized programs didn't want to get involved with it because the phenomenon demonstrates things that they recognize as demonic. It actually is. There is a full section, military investigation and work carrying on a full section called demonic technology. It exists. Hal Puthoff mentioned this only a few weeks back. So yeah, there is some aspects to that.
Next question from Tree of Life. We mentioned portals before. Has Steve found any correlation between clouds of orange-yellow mist and portals? Some examples: Terry Sherman of Skinwalker Ranch mentioned seeing an orange doorway in the sky. Linda Godfrey referenced the mist repeatedly in Monsters Among Us. And Victor Goddard, the RAF pilot who allegedly time-travelled in 1937, did so by flying into a yellow-brown cloud.
Yes, sometimes, yes. There's not just a couple of various different colours which have been seen. Amber is a very popular colour. When you say orange, you say amber. We refer to a lot of these things as amber, and they do vary in size and in shape. If you're dealing with more the ground-based phenomena, associated to certain ancient sites and places like that, then that's a little bit different because it starts off by allegedly being audible. I know Barry, my colleague, is done this during when it was something was actually happening with this. I hate the name portal, but it's unfortunate. I can't get away from it. And recordings. He obtained recordings of shifting rocks. Rocks weren't shifting around, but also a drum beat. The drum beat was coming from the other side, so it was recorded, not from this side. So, and it's a bit like the paranormal stuff. It's like capturing EVPs and DVPs and things like that. But yes, there are some. Some of these are very much trigger responses at times. Some are incorporated by the phenomena, some are manufactured by the phenomena, and some are natural. The natural ones will tend to use certain significant locations at certain times, be it sunrise and sunsets as well. And the phenomena seemingly um, um, can manifest them or utilize them, in some way. So it seems to be two different variables.
Davey, who was the ticket winner of the pair of gold tickets, asks a question as well. Very lucky, Davey. Does Steve see any parallels between his areas of magnetic anomaly where there are hotspots of activity and Bruce Cathy's harmonics of the world magnetic power grid, other energy ley lines as well, ley lines, dragon lines, etc.?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, of course do. These are also identified by our ancient ancestors who built places, resident chambers, specifically on certain key areas because they knew that they could utilize these locations as some form of doorway or a method of being able to commute or contact the other side. That other side would be for communicating with deities or gods or obtaining information, that sort of thing. Um, the magnetic anomalies are more associated, rather than ancient sites, but more associated with the materialization of UAP phenomena of various types and sizes. Um, and those are places over 250 nanotesla. If you were to see them on a magnetic map, they'd be kind of dark, purpley black areas. What I can say about the negative ones, because myself and Barry's done a lot of, I keep saying about Barry, it's Barry Fitzgerald. He used to be the lead investigator for Ghost Hunters International, but Barry was very much into this side of the subject, really, so he always is his passion. And we've been working together for quite a number of years now on this. But we realise that even in negative areas, these are the very dark blue areas. Statistically, if you want to do checks in there, you'll find that there's high amounts of suicide, illness, crime. So there's geological the geology of the earth has an effect on the psyche and the consciousness of those that live in that area. So but then there's a little bit more to it because you have military sites that seem to be relocated to negative areas or places where ancient sites are. You only got to go down to Salisbury Plain to realise that they're building these weapon factories and certain plants for chemicals in places where ancient sites sit. And there's a reason for that, but I can't. That'll be a whole new show, a whole other show. That.
Yeah, there's a lot of those we could go in the tangents off of from
There is.
this one. And final
Yeah.
question, just because we are really running out of time, you've been very generous, Steve. Ash wants to know a little bit more about your investigations at the Winter Hill area in the UK and your best theory to explain the high strangeness in that area.
Winter Hill's been high strangeness for many, many years. There was a coven once which were relocated up there. During the 1600s, a Chorley coven of practicing witches, which were relocated up there, and so they stayed up there for quite some time. But it's a location where cryptids have been seen and experienced. UFO phenomena is a regular thing there. Lucky for me, I can look out my bedroom windows and stare. I don't live here just for a particular reason. I can look straight out my window and I see looking straight at me. It's Winter Hill, and I've experienced a few things up there myself, some weird things. It is notorious for that up there. I'm going to talk about certain locations. It's geology, geology, geology. And that particular location up there is strife with not only paranormal, ufological, and cryptids as well now, actually. So, and there's actually been a spate of unusual animal deaths up there not too long ago. I lived in spitting distance of it purposely because I'm still on the ball investigating that place. And I've been involved investigating Winter Hill for many years, including a Many Black case where he turned up after a cattle hand witnessed a UFO in one of the fields. And there's other cases up there on Winter Hill which are really fascinating. It seems to be one of those places that seems to just attract phenomena, and occasionally, it just keeps rearing its head with people experiencing stuff.
Brilliant. Steve, you've been wonderful with your time. And just to finish off, can you tell people how they can follow you online and also your work as well?
Absolutely, yeah. There is my own website, which is stevemera.com, mera.com. On there, you can see some details. Our first scientific document is up there, our first one of 10 on Project Doorway. So it gives you a bit of an idea on the magnetic anomalies and how phenomena seemingly interacts with it. You can get hold of me through Phenomena magazine, which is an e-zine which is free to download every month, and along with all back issues. That's phenomenamagazine.co.uk. Or you can get in touch with me just basically through YouTube. We have YouTube channels. We have quite a lot of them with the Zohar channels. People will recognize them. Phenomena Magazine has its own YouTube channel, and we have a multitude of different platforms on Facebook as well, including myself and organisations, MAPIT, MAPIT, Manchester's Aerial Phenomena Investigation Team, which I'm the chairman of, which have been running since 1989. I think it was formed in 1973, so it's still going. And I'm also the founder of SEP, the Scientific Establishment Parapsychology, based in the UK, in Manchester. So any places like that, you'll find so many different places. I'd just say Google me, Steve Mera, you'll find me somewhere. If anybody has any questions, wants to get in touch, then just get in touch. My email's out there, personal email's out there, and we're linked to all these websites. So.
Brilliant. Folks, Awakening Expo is happening in Blackpool, England, 24th to 26th of June. Like Steve says, tickets will be available on the door. Please come along, say hello. It would be great to meet you, and I'm sure you'll have a wonderful time as well. Steve, thank you very much.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks for having me on.
That is all for this week's show. Thank you very much for listening. Please remember to leave the podcast a review on your chosen platform. You can like, retweet and subscribe. That would all be very much appreciated. The shows are being uploaded onto YouTube as we speak more and more. You can sign up at patreon.com/That UFO podcast to access the shows ad-free as well. Please get in touch on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, That UFO podcast. Of course, on Twitter, it's at UFO UAPAM. And again, folks, as always, keep looking up. You never know what you might see.
It wasn't a tic-tac and not quite a saucer, more like a hubcap designed by Chaucer, a little Baroque and quite steampunk, like Alice was playing bass for the Parliament of Folk. The little fucker hovered right outside of my window, and when I shoved out the screen, he made it an issue. I don't think he expected me to see his ass, but I'd had some champagne and smoked a little around. Meditative game of state full on meta. You can't imagine how it could have been any better. I got to the top of the stairs and there he was. Like, you awake? I was about to abduct you, cuz. I jumped back and nearly kissed myself, and I climbed out the window after the elf, and I woke up in my bed and there was something on my head and everything was weird and everything was red. And I called out to my boys. They thought this was noise. They thought it was a dream. They thought it was my toys. They thought it was my problems, and they think I should seek therapy, and I don't know what to do because it doesn't really scare me. If you really want to know who I think I be, I think it's you and me and us and we and him and her and that and she and that thing over there and what's that, Jay? But if we're being serious, open your mind, consider your heart, consider time, consider your space, consider your lies, consider your life, consider your eyes. It wasn't a tic-tac and not quite a saucer. It wasn't a tic-tac and not quite a saucer.